Michael Seals, who is the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social and Welfare Association. Michael, I started in your absence. One of the questions I wanted to raise with you, thank you so much for taking the time and making the, to be with us. This question of the use of sirens by a lot of folks who are employed by the police service, folks who are employed by the fire service, the ambulance service. You see one person driving in this thing coming down the road, as I mentioned, and they going through. But when you look in the vehicle, there's only one person there. Very rare, I believe, is one person going to be the occupant of a vehicle that's responding to an emergency. Is that wrong of me to assume?
Hello?
Are you hearing me, Michael?
Yes. Well, let me just explain in terms of what's supposed to happen.
Yes.
Now, the police must respond to an emergency. I can't talk about the other agencies, which is fire and person who normally, or
right.
army who uses their sirens. But I can speak to the police service. And the police service says the requirement that is you have to be on an emergency or responding to an emergency. Yes, there are times when you would see one person in the vehicle, but that is just based on where the officer has to be, based on a strategy. So most of the time, but I will not deny that there are some times that there are complaints, even by fellow officers, that there's an abuse of the use of siren. And that is something that we have spoken to the commissioner about some time ago, and we're hoping it still does not exist. We haven't had any complaints since it was raised in the first issue, but as it is, we cannot take that chance or take it for granted that it does not exist.
Well, you are a motorist just like I am, and many times I have seen it a number of times, sufficiently to be disturbing, that a vehicle goes flashing with a lot of siren, and if I am fortunate, I go a little higher up, and then you see that the siren is suddenly off, and they don't seem to be in a hurry anymore. But the abuse is the issue before us here. What is in place right now to hold officers accountable, and thus what disciplinary measures are in place to stop this practice?
Well, the disciplinary measures is simply an abuse of authority. That officer can find himself before what you call a disciplinary council, who treats with him in regards to his use of firearm, because it's a wanton abuse if it is in fact discovered that he did that. Now, what we call on civic-minded citizens, once you make that type of observation, take the number of the vehicle, call, and make the complaint. Because if we don't make the complaint, as persons just say, they just speak. Even my own colleagues or friends, they just speak. But then at the end of the day, nothing is done about it because of the fact that an official complaint has not been made.
Where is this official complaint to be launched?
You can report that at any police station. The obligation of that policeman is for him to now try to investigate to see who was the driver of the vehicle, the time that it was driven, and then forward that complaint to the police complaints division.
Every time, Michael Seals, by the way, is the voice you're hearing. He's the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social and Welfare Association. And every time an emergency siren is used, as I mentioned again earlier, Michael, is that folks follow them. A trail of vehicles go behind these emergency vehicles. It creates a great danger to other motorists because they are speeding and you're expecting to continue with your journey. And you see this line of cars coming because there's nobody behind to discipline these drivers for tailgating, which they are not supposed to be doing. I am sure this has been observed by many other folks, including law enforcement officers. Anything being done about that?
Of course, because what we will do is just public advisory saying to do not do that because it puts your life in danger and it also puts the life of the officer in danger. But I also want to make the caveat that please do not second guess the use of the siren, because you may very well say, you know what, I am not going to the left and stop and not allow the police officer to respond. And it may be that some civilian or some citizen is in problem and that response time is delayed. So those are the two things I would say in relation to that.
I am glad that you raised that because I am one of those who, no matter what it is, I am going to pull aside simply because you never know. And I understand that. And that is the reason I ask of you what is being done in an aggressive manner to stop those who abuse this privilege. And I think you did answer it already.
Yeah, but the commissioner has given an instruction to all divisional commanders that to sensitize each officer in that regard who are drivers. But also the thing about it is we'll go a long way that if the citizen feels that we can challenge the whole question of that abuse, they are free to make that report. They should not just observe it and leave it as is, because then the persons who are bent on that bad practice will continue. And then when the real emergency really takes place, as a unsuspecting citizen will say, see me, them always playing the fool. And what happens? I'm not going to bother to move because he probably looking to drop his girlfriend down the road or trying to get his girlfriend up to work. These are the things that happen, but we need to also be cognizant of that and ensure that the report is made, whether by my colleagues or by the citizen at large.
You travel like I do, and most of our listeners do. Trinidad and Tobago, with a population of 1.4 million people, must have the most emergency vehicles I have ever seen. You see black vehicles coming down. You see tinted, blacked out windows. It's almost as part of the traffic of the road. All these vehicles issued the flashing lights. Is there something could be done about this? Because that to me smacks of abuse, or just something is just very wrong with the amount of vehicles you see coming down, totally blacked out. You can't even tell who is inside of them.
Well, you see, this is something I would want to speak to and say that simply, again, this is a question of second guessing, because sometimes just what you just described here may be very important persons going to court or very important prisoners being transferred, and the concealment of those prisoners is very important to the operation of the police service. So again, it's without having an actual case to respond to, it doesn't make sense I make a pronouncement on that. I would admit, yes, there is abuse, you understand me, and that speaks to us, speaking to the commissioner continuously, re-educating the officers in terms of the harm it does. That is important. That is most that we can do at this point in time.
I got what you're saying. I want to ask you about something that is equally disturbing to me, which is the area of you coming down the highway. Usually it happens, I hope I don't get anybody in trouble on this, but really, you're coming down the highway, usually in the Beetham area, and you're heading to Port of Spain. Oftentimes you see the vehicle pulled up, this is a traffic vehicle, pulled up on the side of the road with the lights flashing, and most of the times you can look in, on two occasions I've looked into the vehicles that are, they're poised facing the highway. They're not facing east or west, they're facing north. And you pass them, and on two occasions I've seen them reading the newspapers, one reading the newspapers, another time the other guy was eating. And folks are coming down the road barreling at 120, 130 kilometers and just passing them. So what is the cosmetic thing here?
No, it's not a cosmetic thing. That strategy is for a different response. If you understand and you look at the proximity of a particular area there, you will understand the need for them there. And it's sad that you point out that they are both reading the paper and eating the food. It shows the difficulty for a policeman when he's actually on duty. He doesn't have the luxury of eating or even updating what is going on in the country, so he has no choice but to try to get in there, because I don't want to describe what the duty is, but it's a sensitive issue in terms of those vehicles being at that location, but I can assure you it is strategy driven. The issue of the vehicle steering, that's a different issue, but that is for a different level of policing that has to take care of that. Their responsibility or area of responsibility is for something specific, which I cannot pronounce on the national airways.
A rapid response thing. Okay, I follow what you're saying. All right. Michael Seals is my guest here. It just annoys me because I see them. I think they're the traffic colors, and I always thought that was their purpose to enforce things like the speed limit. And I do understand what you're saying. It could be there for another tactical rapid response purpose, but it disquiets me. All right. The position of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social and Welfare Organization regarding Professor Ramesh Deosaran's recommendation that the Prime Minister be given the power, minus the bureaucracy, to appoint the Commissioner of Police and a Deputy Commissioner of Police. What is the response from your organization, sir?
Well, the response is that when you have knowledge such as that being espoused in the public domain, you have to take notice. And we have to understand that Professor Deosaran was a former commissioner, not only a commissioner, but the chairman of the Police Service Commission. And it's important to take cognizance of what he's saying, because at the end of the day, we want to get to a position where we have a settled commissioner of police and settled deputies of commissioners of police, so that we can move the police service forward. It's important at this point in time because we we hear the talk that because a person is acting, they are doing the job, but it's not really that, because part of that person is almost like a wait and see, because if you continuously give that person extension periods of 6 months, that person could say he's planning ahead, but then you have the disruption of him not knowing at what point in time that he is going to be relieved of that responsibility if a permanent commissioner is installed.
It must have a problem down the ranks, because even those following an acting commissioner who's been acting for 9 terms, or even for more than just 1 term, even more than just an interim period, you're going to have those down the ranks wondering, well, should we follow what his vision is, because he may not be here after 6 months.
Yes, and that's the next thing, because one would look at it from that context. But let me just say, acting appointment is a disease in the police service. It makes the police service convoluted in terms of its whole decision making in terms of succession planning. It creates that monster, and what you have at that time going on is the issue of officers' motivation, who's looking at the top and saying, listen, a person who's at the rank of assistant commissioner of police cannot be a deputy commissioner of police, much less a commissioner of police. So how do I motivate the youngest constable who's coming in, or somebody who's on the streets and wants to make law enforcement their career, and see that type of chaos, and that type of things that will shock the fabric of you, and say, all right, I can send my son, or my son wants to become a policeman, or myself at an early age wanting to be a policeman, and thinking that I can ascend to the ranks in a natural progression, only to be shocked by what is actually happening now. It's causing a lot of problems, and you see, I think most persons, even the Police Service Commission and even the government by and large, doesn't really understand what is happening. But probably later on they will see it.
Michael Seal, my guest. Michael, my final question to you is this, and this is another area that disquiets me a great deal. Maybe you can do some clarification for me. What is your organization's position regarding many private security company personnel wearing uniform or fatigue that is not clearly distinguishable from that worn by the police service? Because and I'm talking about not those that you can examine and see it is a security service. I'm talking about at a glance, because the general public get a chance to only see these security people from a glance. And if the fatigue is close, the uniform is close to that of regular police, one can easily be confused, and particularly in these times where we have so many people who are impersonating, this becomes a problem. What is your organization's position regarding private security firms wearing uniforms that are not clearly distinguishable from that of the police?
Well, let me say it's twofold. We hate it because of the fact that you have that confusion you just spoke of, but it also goes to another point for us, because we would have at least met with the government and proposed a new uniform. The interministerial team has been composed, but yet still they have not gathered as a group to sit and flesh out not even a mandate or terms of reference in order for how they progress forward. Because the time has come, because right now I can tell you policemen are willing, because of the temperate climate we live in, to even go back to the issue of short pants. But the point is that the short pants, in terms of what is being done in the U.S. Jurisdiction, and polo jerseys, these are the things they would like to do. But unfortunately, we have to stick with the old paradigm. And that's what's happening in the police service. And they are not doing anything. And that distinction between us and the security will continue to be a perennial problem unless we fix the first problem, which is the actual uniform of the police service, so that we can distinguish ourselves and be the premier leading agency of law enforcement in the country.
I said that was my last question. It should have been my penultimate question, because something that's before us this morning is the whole question of the $400,000 that was taken from the Chinese businessman. Those folks initially thought there were people, robbers, impersonating police officers. A statement coming out from the commissioner, the acting commissioner of police, makes it clear that this, in fact, was an SRP who has been arrested. He is being questioned, and more people are expected to be arrested. Your organization represent police officers. The issue of the SRPs, the training, and the commitment to the service is something that has been raised before. What is your comment on this situation?
Well, let me just progress into this and just express the whole view of the membership. The membership has taken a view, both SRPs and regulars, that man involved should just be dismissed from the police service. I would also want to say to the Asian population, those who live here, those who are visiting here, or who have business here. It seems to us that from the association standpoint that they are a soft target, and we want to not let them feel that way, but they must feel comfortable and welcome in the country and go about their business in the normal way as any other citizen. And for us, in terms of what has happened, the association has already categorized that as repulsive, and we totally condemn that. We stand with the commissioner in terms of any decision he makes in relation to these circumstances, and we will shoulder with him as we move forward. But as regards to Special Reserve, there are a number of good Special Reserve officers. I cannot discount the human service that they are given to the police service, and the point is that they are instrumental. The point is that these are some things that happen in a system. You may have one barrier. The problem for us is our view of how we look at the police service. When something like that happens, we tend to broad brush the entire police service. This is why we have to treat the persons like that swiftly, so that we can always say that we deal with things like that in a quick fashion, so that justice is meted out and we keep the confidence of the public in it.
It is always dangerous to use a broad brush. We will all agree with that, but you too are mindful that this is not an isolated case. We've had instances like these happening.
Yes, and it's not just with the police service. This is generally in public, because we are seeing that issue of persons of Asian descent being robbed numerous times. But my caveat for that is to really say to them, listen, strengthen your security issues, particularly the question of holding large sums of money at your home or place. It will also speak of, sometimes you may cavalier or casually talk to someone and not understanding that you are making yourself a victim because they are just observing to get the right opportunity to pounce on them, be it a policeman or the civilian. So we have to understand that, and we have to respond to that. And I think the commissioner will say more on that as the time goes along.
If I have ghosts, I will call Ghostbusters. If I have a problem, I will call the police. It means it is incumbent that we, with speed, with great haste, move to clean up the service, because it's kind of difficult. While I understand what you're doing, and you said that to deal with this a segment of our community that's in trouble, the question of those police officers that we put our trust in going on the wrong side, not only dismissed, they must be charged, and what is to happen to them must be used as an example to stamp out this.
I think that will happen now, and I can only imagine at the commissioner's response. I cannot say what he will do, but I would understand sometimes in interaction with him what might be his thought processes. But the point is that I would assure you that he will speak to that issue. Not only will speak to that issue, you would see how quickly, and thank God for the Professional Standard Bureau, who has responded admirably in this situation. You would see the results of it very soon.
The president of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Social and Welfare Association, Michael Seeds, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this Sunday morning.